Good news, everyone! Today's video is brought to us by the great taste of Charleston Chew. Yes, we are doing a Futurama themed video today. I will be making Bender B. Rodriguez. I can't roll my R's. I'm sorry, Rodriguez. I can't roll my R's. I'm using a gas tank bottle cap for his head and this used up fire extinguisher that I used in the thank you video a while back, and I guess it's true. If you use one of these, as soon as you use it, you got to get it recharged because it's been a couple months and this thing does nothing. Which is okay because I'm gonna take it apart and weld a bunch of stuff to it. So I have about 40% of this plan figured out. So let me show you how I did it. I'm starting this project out by making Bender's head. Like I said in the intro, I'm using the cap off the gas bottle. I've already cleaned it up. I grabbed 2 chunks of random scrap and I am just tacking them in for the holes on the side because I want to fill that up with weld so I can then grind it down and blend it smooth. But now that I have the pieces tacked in, let's get the sleeves on, and now I'm going to go through and get it all welded up. And I'm not going to waste all of your time this project because there's a lot of points where I stop and blend all of the welds, and you don't need to see that. So each time I get to it, I'll just let you know that I'm going to blend it and we'll move on to the next step. Now that I have all my filler welded in and this thing is 1,000 degrees so I don't want to touch it, I'm gonna put it to the side, let it cool off, and we'll come back after I get it all polished up and I'll move on to showing you the top part of the antenna that I'm going to be using for Bender. It is a valve out of a 350 Chevy engine. I don't know what vehicle it came out of, but I do know that it actually came out of a 350 engine. So I'm going to cut down the stem of the valve a little bit and use it as the top portion of Bender's antenna. As you see, I got the head all polished up, trying to make it look good for that double step that he has in his head. But I'm going to get the little chunk of valve tacked on, and then to top off the entire antenna, I am going to be using a 3/8 ball bearing. I'll get that tacked on real quick, get it blended, and then I will move on to showing you how I am going to do the mouth. I went back and forth if I was going to actually cut the whole thing out and make like the grid pattern out of like round stock or something, but I didn't really like any of those ideas, so I went and asked my buddy Kevin to make me a negative vinyl sticker of his actual mouth. So I'm going to slap the sticker on right now. Hopefully it comes out pretty even and level. Then I will paint over the entire sticker, wait for it to dry, peel the sticker, and then I will be grabbing my die grinder and going through and grinding out all of the lines so it's more of like an etching of his mouth. I'm not sure if it's the best way to do it, but this is the best way I thought to do it. If you have a better idea of how I should have done it, tell me down in the comments. I'm always open to finding out better ways to do the things that I do, so if you have a better idea than what I just did, let me know about it. With the lines all etched in, I'm going to go through and take all the rest of the paint off, but I'm going to move on to making Bender's eyes. I will be using 2-1/4" ball bearings. I'm going to weld them together, and I am going to grind out the back side of the eyes to try to have them fit the radius of the cap, because when I set them on there, it made him look like he had big old bug eyes, and I don't really want it to look like that. So I'm going to grind out the back of the eyes so it'll fit more flush to the cap, get that tacked in, welded on, and then I will be moving on to making Bender's actual visor, but I'll get to it in a second. Now that I'm happy with the eyes, I'm going to move on to making the visor. I am using 2 pieces of 2x2 square tube. I am putting a layout on it right now. I am coming in just past the radius on one side of each of the tubes. I'm going to cut the insides off so it is one long piece of rectangle. Yeah, I know I could have gone out and bought what would it be, 2x4" but I literally just needed this small little piece. So instead of going out and buying some, I'm just gonna make it. So I'm gonna cut off the insides, realign the 2 sections back together, make sure everything's straight and even, get it welded, blend it, then I am going to go through and cut out one side of it to match the radius of the actual cap so it can go around the eyes and I don't hopefully have too huge of gaps that I have to then fill once I weld the entire visor on. But I'm not quite there yet, so I'll get that all taken care of and then I'll come back and show you the finished chunk of visor and how I put it on to the cap. But this is a little hot right now, so I'm going to let that cool off and I'll come back to it. Now that I got the visor all welded up, ground down, cleaned up, it's time to actually fit it to the rest of the head. I went through, got it leveled and straight as well as I could. Then I started welding it in. Then I got to this last side and it actually started separating a little bit from the heat. So I just grabbed my hammer and, gave it a couple good thumps to get it to sit back down to where I wanted to be so I didn't have a big old gap that I am trying to fill. I am just tacking almost everything on this project because a few of the items are a little thin and I don't want to burn through and have to chase trying to fill burn through holes, so I am just tack welding everything in. This isn't structural, so it doesn't really matter too much in the end. But now that I am done with the head, I am going to now move over to the body. So let's show you how I started processing the fire extinguisher. For the body, I have to begin by cutting a large section out of the fire extinguisher. I think I removed 5.5 inches. Otherwise, the body would be way out of proportion to the rest of him, so I am removing this large chunk. I will go through and bevel both sides of the tank, and then I will be welding it back together, get it blended so I can move on to actually getting the head onto the tank. But first, I do need to weld this back together. This part is actually the reason why I was just tacking everything together instead of putting full beads on everything.
the fire extinguisher itself is awfully thin, and I didn't want to mess it up and then have to try to find another fire extinguisher to replace the one that I, jacked up. So I was going slow and methodical with welding the tank back together. I didn't want any huge issues with it. With the body taken care of, I'm going to move on to prepping the pieces for his shoulders. I am using these 3-inch half spheres. I'm going to go grind them down. Oh, look at that. Look, got them all ground down. And now I'm going to actually start tacking them onto the body, get those all welded up, get them cleaned, and then I'm going to put the head on top of the body. Once I get this all welded, I am going to blend in the shoulders before I put the head on, and you might be asking yourself, why are you grinding everything after each step? Why not just do it all at the end? Because if I wait till the end to grind everything at once, it becomes a lot of grinding at the end. So that's the part that I don't like to do the most. So if I do it as I go along, it's only a couple minutes here and there of blending and grinding. So that is why I do a little bit at a time so I don't have to do it all at once. And for whatever reason, I was really fixated on trying to make the head perfect. And it took me forever. Look at me. Look at it, just staring at it. It's not changing if you're not moving it. So I finally get it in place. I'm going to tack the head in. I will weld it up. But unfortunately, I have to go back a step because I forgot a very important part on Bender's head when I was going through making his head. So we gotta actually just put some pupils on this guy so he doesn't look all creepy. So we're switching to Giant's view. Luckily, I found these little square nuts. Not really sure what they're used for, but they're the perfect shape for what I need them for. And they already have a hole in the middle, so I'm just going to tack both of the eyes on. I'll blend that up, and then we'll move on to the next step. For the hands, I am using 2 old wire wheel cut brushes. I'm going to start by cutting the bristles off of them, and then I'll take them over to the burn table where I am going to put them on just some random plate and trace them out along with the 4-inch pipe cap that I'm using for the feet, but I want to, oh, that sounds weird, cap the hands and feet so they're more solid and finished. I will cut out the rounds, get them all cleaned up, and then I'll show you how I tacked and welded them all together so they would look, complete and done. Now you can get a better view of the actual pipe cap that I am using, and I'm just going to, as I said, tack all of it together and get it blended, and those will be my hands and feet. And then I'll show you what I am doing for the actual fingers for Bender. And right here is where I drop my PSA for the video. If you're a welder, watch your consumables, because right here I ran out of wire and I didn't have any more, so that was it for the night, and I had to come back later to continue on after I went and got more wire. So pay attention to your consumables, kids. With the hands and the feet done, I'm going to show you real quick what I did for the fingers. I'm using 5/8 bolts. I think they're like 13 inches long. I don't know, they're really overkill bolts. But I am just bending them a little bit just to give the fingers a little bit more life to them, and then I'll cut it all up and grind them, shape them, and then we'll put them on at the very end. Finally, moving on to the part that I was putting off as long as I could because I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to go about doing it. I finally came to the idea that I would make this roller fixture so I could just put the pipe on the fixture and hopefully control it as I rolled it to score the joint lines through his arms and legs. Luckily, it actually seemed to work out pretty good, so I am going to finish scoring all of the lines in the pipe for the arms and legs. Then I'm going to attempt to put some bends into it so he's not just sitting there stiff with straight arms and legs, but I'm not 100% how I am going to do that either, so give me a minute and we'll get to that part, and hopefully by then I have it all figured out. Okay, I know this isn't the right way to do it, but I don't have a pipe bender. I didn't want to bother anybody that I know with a pipe bender, so I figured this hopefully will work. I welded a rotor to the table. I'm gonna heat the pipe up to, glowing, and I'm gonna try to give it a... Why am I trying to bend it by hand? I'm not that strong. So I grabbed a cheater bar and started to bend it, but I noticed that it was starting to kink the pipe, and I didn't want to kink it real bad, so I sacrificed the amount of bend that I wanted to have in the pipe for better aesthetics of the pipe. And weirdly enough, I actually got the rotor so hot that it snapped the welds off the table, so I had to clean it up. I'll weld it back on and try and get a little bit more of a bend out of the rest of it. I will admit I didn't get as much as I wanted to get out of it, but the trade-off was the aesthetic of not kinking the pipe, so I guess I'm okay with a little less bend for better aesthetic, I guess. I don't know, that's how I'm trying to justify it to myself because I'm slightly disappointed with it. So, figure out how to justify why it's okay in my head. Now that I got it bent up, I'm going to get it cut and start figuring out how to put all of it together. To be completely honest with you, I am not super great at cutting things at the proper angle or figuring out what the proper angle is for the legs and arms and everything to just go together real well, so it's a lot of trial and error. I actually just bolted a bench grinder to the table, so when I walk back and forth during the video, I am going back and forth to the grinder to try and grind down the angles so they fit quite right. But it's a lot of guesswork, so I'm just gonna let you see how I struggled through putting this together. I'll get it welded and then I will explain to you the next step, but enjoy the struggle bus that I was on while putting together the arms and legs. I know everybody's been missing him, so here he is. Everybody's been asking for him. Here's AO. He's finally back in one of my videos. Say hi, everybody. Hi, AO. But he was nice enough to do a bunch of the really boring grinding work that I didn't feel like doing. But he also gave me an extra task because he thought it would be a good idea to stack up a bunch of nuts and grind them down to make them look like a little bottle. And I told him that's a great idea, but I'm not doing all that grinding. He said, don't worry, I'll do it. So we're gonna actually make a bottle for Bender because AO was kind enough to do most of the really boring, tedious work that I wasn't gonna be willing to do. Ha, see, he got bored of doing it too by the end. But I do really appreciate that he did the prep work for these, and I am now going to tack all of the nuts together, weld it up, and add all of the fillers so there's enough material there to grind it down and actually shape it into a bottle, and it will be the first thing that I put onto the hand to finish up all of the work on the actual body of Bender. See? Not too bad. It looks like a bottle. It came out pretty good. I am going to tack it on, and then I will start putting all of the fingers around it for the rest of the hand. As I was putting the last finger on, I realized that he's a little unstable, so I wanted to make him a little more sturdy, so I am going to grab a 6-inch round that I had laying around and actually just weld it to the bottom of him, give him a little bit better center of gravity so he doesn't tip over on me. And then I will go through and put on the remaining 3 fingers on the last hand, and then I will be able to show you the final step of this build. So for the final step of today's build, all I have to do is go through and etch or engrave, whatever way you want to say it, the hatch into Bender's chest. Then I'll go through, do final cleanup, and get a clear coat on it, and send you out of here with some sweet B-roll. Thank you for coming to check out today's video. If you like what I did here, hit that like, comment, share, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.